Hello, I hope you're well. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is my 5-star predictions video, and so I've selected 5 fiction and 5 nonfiction titles that I predict will be 5-star reads for me and that I hope to get to during 2021. I guess we'll see how well I do by the end of the year, but I think we all know how these videos work, so why don't we just dive right in? I think I'm going to start with nonfiction, and the first book is No Man's Land by Wendy Moore, which is so up my alley. I love nonfiction history books that are women-focused, so focused on the lives of women at a particular moment or looking at particular women during said moment. And this is also a book about World War I, which is a period of time that I am genuinely interested in. So this ticks a lot of boxes for me. It is about these two what are described as suffragette female doctors who are running a female-staffed hospital during World War I and treating men who are coming back from the front. And this is at a time when female doctors were few and far between, but also when female doctors were expected to only treat other women and children. So these are women who are treating and operating on men, which is just so badass. So as I mentioned, this is World War I focused, but medical professionals during this time period would have also been grappling with the Spanish flu, I believe, which is the pandemic that COVID-19 has been compared to quite frequently because they've both happened in modern times. And so while that might hit close to home, I think that is just really, really interesting. I just have really good feelings about this book because I've read other history of medicine type nonfiction recently, and those have just been some of my favorites, and I've really enjoyed them, and I think it's honestly because that little pre-med part of me still exists and is still a sucker for a good medical story. So there you have it. The next book is Catherine the Great by Robert K. Massie, which I got for Christmas and was mentioned in my Christmas birthday haul video, which I'll link for you, but this is purely based on subject matter. I love Russian history, but Catherine the Great in particular happens to be one of my historical girl crushes. I find her life just so compelling in general, and so to be able to read a biography about it just sounds so exciting to me. I mean, she was a unimportant German princess who marries the future Tsar of Russia, comes to power after a coup, and is this enlightened despot sort of figure, and I just love it and am so looking forward to reading this. I honestly, the only way I feel that this book could be less than 5 stars is if it reads a little too dryly or a little too academically, but I'm hoping that's not the case because I think this can be a really, really interesting read for me. The next book was also in that same birthday Christmas haul video, and it is Romantic Outlaws by Charlotte Gordon, which is this dual biography of the mother-daughter duo Mary Wollstonecraft and Mary Shelley, and both of them are just badassy type of historical figures, and so to have their life stories in one book just feels like it's going to be explosive and so fun to read. Mary Wollstonecraft was an advocate for women's rights in the 1700s and wrote a vindication for the rights of women, or of the rights of women. I can never get that title right, but it is something that was referred to during the suffragette movements in the 19th century and the 20th century. And then you have Mary Shelley, her daughter, who wrote Frankenstein when she was like 19 or 20. Like, I can't think of anything that I accomplished at 19 or 20, so that just blows my mind. I've honestly heard really good things about this book, that despite its size, it is quite a brick of a book. It's actually a quick read, so that bodes well. But also, I'm just intrigued by this, like, concept of a dual biography and how that's actually done. But I am very excited about this one, and considering I had to order it from England, it better be good. Okay, next up we have Black Tutors by Miranda Kauffman, which I think I tried to get around to reading in Nonfiction November, but since it's here, I obviously didn't. I have been salivating over this book, though, since I first saw it mentioned on Emma's channel, Emma at a Cup of Books. So this is taking this idea that many of us have that Black people were not around during Tudor England and turning it completely on its head. I think it's doing so by looking at the lives of 10 Black individuals living during the time period and kind of exploring what daily life was like for them and also how they were being treated, which I think will be really interesting. So, if I'm going to be honest, I certainly fell victim to believing that same misconception that if there were Black people in Tudor England, then they were slaves. I am so ready to be educated and reschooled on the Tudor time period. I don't read a ton on Tudor England now, but honestly that was where my love of history originally stemmed from. So I am really looking forward to this, and I do think that it's just going to be a really eye-opening read. And the last nonfiction 5-star prediction is this guy, Cold Warriors by Duncan White. Say hello to my little friend. This massive book has been taunting me from my bookcase since I bought it. Honestly, this was one of these books that pre-COVID, when I was walking around Barnes & Nobles, I would stare longingly at, but then never buy, and it took several visits. I finally just bought it, and I am so intrigued by the subject matter of this. It's like part literary history, part spy thriller. It's looking at basically these literary figures during the Cold War who became embroiled in sort of this espionage and conspiracy on both sides of the Iron Curtain. And I know next to nothing about how these literary figures like Orwell, Hemingway, Pasternak, just to name a few, were involved in that sort of spy type activity with their writing, and it just feels like it's going to be a real life example of the pen is mightier than the sword, and I am so here for it. I am very excited about this book. It's just that it's big. It's nearly 700 pages long, which is why I haven't tried to tackle it yet, but the English major in me is so intrigued to see how literary history and these literary figures fall into this Cold War conspiracy type world. And also, I just love spy things. Like 007, Man from U.N.C.L.E., Red, like anything like that, I'm a sucker for. So I feel like this is gonna be another one that I'm just really into. Okay, so now that nonfiction's out of the way, let's talk fiction. And the first book is Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters. Now, if you watch my channel, you know that Sarah Waters is my favorite author of the moment. The 3 books by her that I've read so far have all been 4 or 5-star ratings for me, and I'm just won over by her stories in general. This one, Tipping the Velvet, is set during the Victorian era, which is the same sort of setting as Fingersmith, which is my favorite book of hers to date. And so I'm hoping that the same atmosphere that won me over there is carried over here. It's about an oyster girl, which I don't actually know what that is. Is it just someone who sells oysters or shellfish? I don't know. But she falls in love with a male impersonator. And that just sounds so intriguing to me, but also gives me like slight Victoria vibes without going quite to the same level of Inception where Victor Victoria is a woman pretending to be a man, pretending to be a woman. I think this is just a woman pretending to be a man. So, yes. But I'm just really intrigued by it. Also, I love the fact that the title, Tipping the Velvet, is a euphemism. Look it up, because it just makes me laugh. But yeah, I don't see any way that a book by Sarah Waters could not be a 4 or 5 star review, and since Fingersmith, which was set during the same time period, was up there for me as a 5 star, I'm really banking on this being the same sort of deal. The next one is The Lost Queen by Signe Pike. And this was on my winter TBR, so I'm still hoping to get to it before the end of March. But this is a novel set during the 6th century in Scotland, so you're going way, way back, and has been compared to Outlander and the Mists of Avalon. And while that is setting the bar really, really high for this one, I do really think that it's going to live up to it. It is looking at this forgotten queen who happens to be the sister, the twin sister of the individual who becomes Merlin of Arthurian legend. And I'm just intrigued by that whole concept. And I also think that one of the things that made me love the Mists of Avalon, which was this conflict between the paganism and druidism, and Christianity also plays a role here. If that's done well, I can see that being a really, really nice, nuanced look at the situation during the 6th century. But yeah, I am already completely won over by the idea of this book. It is actually the first book in a trilogy, so if I really enjoy this one, I do want to get the second book. And I don't think the third book comes out for like 2 years, so I have time, but I'm really hoping this trilogy becomes a thing for me. Okay, so the next book is Graham Greene's The End of the Affair, which is one of my modern classics, and I'm familiar with the story, partly because there are 2 film adaptations of it already. One from like 1955 with Deborah Carr and Van Johnson, and one from like 99 or 2000 with Julianne Moore and Ray Fiennes. And I've watched both before I even knew it was based on a book, and enjoyed both. So I do know the general plot line, and this is a book that is about a love triangle taking place during World War II, and is really about the obsession and the jealousy that can happen in those types of relationships. And because it is a book rather than a film, I feel like you're going to delve into the heads of the characters a little bit more, which I think will be interesting to kind of explore the psychology of an affair through these characters. I do think it's going to be more of a character-driven plot because of that, but I am genuinely interested in seeing the actual original text and how that compares to those movies. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. I will report back. It is not a long novel, so hopefully I can get to it soon. So next up is The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. And full disclosure, this book has been on my bookshelf since 2013 when it won the Man Booker Prize. But I think the sheer size of it has been a deterrent over the years. But I literally just saw the trailer for the series that is based off this book with Eva Green, and I was shook and immediately was like, how quickly can I get to this? It's set during the 1860s in New Zealand during the gold rush. I don't actually think I've ever read anything set during a gold rush, whether in New Zealand or otherwise, or maybe even a book set in New Zealand. So this is new territory for me. But it seems like there are a lot of intriguing things that have happened where a man has turned up dead, a prostitute has tried to kill herself, and all of these things. And I just want to understand how they all fit together already. Weirdly, the synopsis of the book makes it feel like this male character is really the focus, but the TV show really felt like it's planning to focus more on the women in the story. So I'm intrigued to find out which way this actually goes. But I'm just genuinely excited about this now and want to read the book before I watch the series. I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's my plan. So hopefully I'll get to this very, very soon. As I said, I'm one-man booker, so I'm going in thinking that the characters are going to be amazing, the world building is going to be amazing, the writing is going to be amazing, and just the overall story is going to just blow my mind. So here's hoping it does. And lastly, Katherine by Anya Seton, which I am just so curious about on so many levels. It is the story of the love affair of Catherine Swynford and John of Gaunt, the Duke of Gloucester, so one of the Plantagenets, and it's set during the 13th or 14th century, can't remember which, 1300s, so 14th century. And what I do know from the synopsis is that Catherine was already married, but these two individuals have this love affair that spans decades. So I feel like it's going to be very romantic. But what also has me excited about this is that it's actually a historical fiction novel that was written in the 1950s. So it's backlist, like way backlist. And I'd never heard of it, but Alison Weir has a blurb on the cover and says that it has remained an inspiration and the benchmark by which I judge historical novels. So that's also setting a very high bar. What I loved when I was looking up the author Anya Seton to kind of get a little biographical information is that she actually described herself as writing biographical novels, which if I actually look at the historical fiction that I love, that's what they are. They are the novelizations of these historical figures. So the fact that she described it that way has me won over already. I'm super excited about it. It has been on my bookshelf for probably a year, so I really do need to get around to reading this one, and I'm really hoping that it is a 5-star. So yeah, those are my 5-star predictions, and those are the books that I'm hoping to get to by the end of the year. I will report back and let you know how I do with them. And in the meantime, thank you so much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!